be here because we know you won't remain the same. Over to you, PF. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much, Ayodeji. Lawrence, thank you very much. Good morning from Dallas, Texas. Also, Saviors, good evening in Nigeria. I think it's afternoon in Nigeria, actually. I think it's maybe early morning or midnight somewhere in China. Wherever you're joining us from. If you're joining from Canada, Toronto time, that's Eastern time. I'm on Central time. And I'm super excited to have all of you here. So if you have your friends and your families, or you know any African or someone of African heritage, or that you really, really need to join this session, this is very, very important because we're talking about family legacy, and you can't afford to miss this and the people you love. Okay, so all through the month of September, incidentally, that's my birthday month, we are going to be looking at how to build a family legacy. This conversation is a very, very tough one to have because of our history and what has transpired over the years. It's a conversation, however, we need to have. It's a conversation that might not go the route you expect it to go. But I want you to focus on the most important part of the conversation and keep an open mind. And please, whatever we discuss here, attempt to research, practicalize, and implement. Because one of the things I have discovered over time is that there is a generation of people who believe in family heritage, and they have documented it over the years. They call them first movers advantage in business. They got it early. They documented it, promoted it, and pushed it. And if you look around the globe, you will find them leading the world at various levels because they think they have a right to these things. And they are not wrong. Because if we're all in a class, 25 students in a class, and then someone stood up and said, I am the greatest, and everyone else keeps quiet. The following day, the guy stood up and stands up again and says, I'm the greatest, and everyone keeps quiet, right? If they allow him to consistently say, I am the greatest, very soon all the other people are going to worship him. That's the way the world is created. That leadership is not given, leadership is taken. That you cannot sit still and do nothing when others were making moves, and when others were trying to determine the future, and you do nothing. And so after a while, everybody will become the branch of that guy. They will become his marketers. And they will say, that guy, he's the greatest in our class. He's the greatest. He has not demonstrated any capacity. He has not performed any miracle. He has not raised the dead. He has not done anything. But the audacity to stand up and say, I am the greatest, every other person becomes his echo, and they all begin to market him. That is what has happened over the years, that Africans have been scripted to doubt what they really have, to doubt, to in fact, to think evil of what is their heritage, their authenticity. You know, each time I read the Bible, I am amazed at how history was curated, how heritage, genealogy was curated. In fact, if you look at the genealogy of Jesus, you will find a prostitute in there. They didn't hide her. They didn't say, this Jesus is going to be a perfect man. Let us put perfect people in his heritage. The prostitute was there. David was there, who was an adulterer, who was a killer, who snatched somebody else's wife, who, well, you can call a fornicator. He was there. They didn't hide it. They didn't hide all these things. But you know, what is not good about our own heritage, we don't own it. We dissociate from it, move away from it, thereby fragmenting the future and fracturing history, not knowing that what we were dealing with was our identity. Each time you run away from your heritage and from your history, your identity is compromised. You just begin to float. Now, it may not make more sense to you, but it affects your children differently. So I want you to pay attention to this series we're going to run through the entire month of September. Now, we've tagged this Building Family Legacy as an African. And so today, I am going to be focusing on what I've titled Taste of Africa, Rediscovering Your Superpower. Now, that is where I would like to start this conversation from. To say that if we don't even discover or rediscover our superpower, to know what you have in your family as a heritage, there is no legacy to build to start with, right? And so, Bible says a good man leaves inheritance for his children's children, right? Many of us, our parents left us anger. They didn't leave us a very wealthy farm. They didn't leave us foreign companies. They didn't leave us a conglomerate. They will say they left us prayers and values and all those things, which is not bad, but we wouldn't have minded if they left us prayer and then all those values with money as well, right? And so the concept that poverty is transferred from one generation to another, it's a big problem, because it will then mean that everyone is starting afresh, and then there is really nothing tangible, as it were, that can sustain the next generation. So we are going to be looking at Taste of Africa. Now, I'm going to make this a bit participatory. If I show you this image and I ask you to pick your meal today, which of them will you pick and why? I need responses. Please raise your hand and unmute yourself if you want to respond to me. I need us to do this together. If I ask you to pick your meal, which one will you pick and why? Your meal this afternoon or today. Anybody? I need help. Let's make it snappy, or you can go to the chat box. Okay, Ayo is raising her hand. Hey, why?
Yes, I'll pick the amaland, begiri, and ewedu with the orishirishi in it. And
Why
it's
are you
because,
picking this? Why are you picking this amala? Why are you not picking the other one?
no, because it's my traditional meal, and even
Okay.
everyone in the house knows that that's what I love the most. Even my
Okay.
smile depicts the fact that I love it. So it's my
Okay.
traditional meal. I love it so
Mhm.
much.
Thank you
Yes.
very much. Elizabeth, can we have you? You raised your hand. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm
Afternoon.
going for the abula as well, because I'm from Osun State, and it's one
Aha.
of our very, very favorites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I may want to just ask, why are you not picking the English breakfast?
Ah, sorry. One came before the other.
Aha.
I
Thank
was
you
brought
very
up with the amala and Begiri and all of that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Opeyemi is saying I will pick the Isiewu, okay, Amalana Bula, because I am Omoluabi. Now, would I be right to say, just taking a look at this image, there was something in you that actually resonated with the Amala or the Isiewu, and there was something in you that rebelled against the English breakfast because some of them looked more like you than the other. Right. Thank you very much. Where is Apple? We'll put Apple next week. Okay. I will pass on all. Right? Someone say born in Ibadan. Now, John, me looking at it. If this meeting was a meeting of white people, I'm not sure any of them will pick Kamala or they will pick your issue, except out of curiosity. What will resonate with their spirit, what will resonate with their identity will be more of the English breakfast. I mean, you take this English breakfast to Aba, right? Or you take it to Ekwe Idumota, and you ask them to pick. The typical area boy is going to look at you and feel insulted that this bread and this English breakfast, because the thing does not even satisfy him. But you see, it is not about the food. It's about identity and heritage, because there is something in all of you that easily, because you are looking at the abula, you are looking at the meat, you are looking at the pomo, there is something in you that is singing. There is excitement, right? If I put apple there now, God's will begin to get excited. Simply because this is you. The other guy with what's it called now? Egg and bacon is not you. It doesn't mean you can't eat it, but there is something in you that says, this is not me. This is not me, right? Okay. Someone is saying I can't eat for my life. My swallow is pounded yam or something like that. Okay, that's fine. Now, but this is, follow me carefully. I'm going on a journey. Now, I want you to pick your superhero and why. Okay, again, we repeat the question. So you have Spider-Man, you have Batman, you have Santa Claus, and you have a Gungun. Be careful, now express you they go. Can you pick your superhero and why? Okay, who goes again? You can raise your hand. You can put your answer on the. They talk back here and say, what? Oh my God, Emma, please don't kill me. Right? Okay, so let's go. Pick your superhero and tell me why. Anybody? You'll begin to see the problems now. And I need us to be very honest, right? Please raise your hand. I want people to talk, okay? Santa, religious bias, Santa Claus, because he brings present, okay? Elizabeth, again. Yes, let's have you.
I mean, to be honest, none of the above.
Okay.
If I was to think about the one I was more affiliated to, would be the Egungun.
Yeah.
You know, because again, I grew up with my grandparents in Osun State, so I know all the Egungun festival and all of that. But obviously, having become a Christian, I don't really associate myself to that anymore.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah. So in fact, you are my perfect specimen. Why don't you associate yourself anymore to the Egungun, having become a Christian?
Obviously, because I was so involved that I know that there are dark stuff attached to it.
Okay.
You know, and that's the reason really that I won't.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth.
I mean, I really got involved in all the sacrifices and everything that they do before the Egungun will go out, all the preparation and everything. So I kind of know the dark side of it.
Okay, so the sacrifices you got involved with, I mean, maybe you help us a little bit. Did they kill a human being there? Did they mutilate a human being, or it was just chicken and they will cut the head and make incantation? What was it exactly?
It depends, because Egungun as well, you know, it's done according to the covenant that the particular house has with that particular Egungun, and the sacrifice that they have to make, preparation before the Egungun will come out. So sometimes it can actually be human, and sometimes it can be animal. In fact, sometimes it can be just, you know, cooking eko for people to eat before the Egungun. So it depends on the house, you know, the different houses within the village that is bringing out the Egungun.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. In fact, you are going to be my good perfect specimen for this session today. Now, some of us will pick, when we're younger, you're likely going to pick Spider-Man or Batman. You are unlikely to pick Egungun. So there begins the conflict. So you picked Amala. That resonates with you. But you didn't pick Egungun. Most of the time, because of what you saw or what you were told, compared to what you have now been taught. Somebody said Santa, right? It will interest you to know that, and I think I've shared it here before, it might just be the same person inside all these costumes, right? Doing business and playing tricks on everyone. And you will choose one much more than the other because Spider-Man saves people, Batman saves people. This Egungun guy maybe needs rebranding because he's always chasing people with husky voice and cane in his hand. Santa is Egungun, a nice Egungun with gifts in his hands, right? And so you would realize that you don't know the people under this mask. However, the stories you have been told, you are not even aware whether Spider-Man does sacrifice before they start the movie. We don't care about that because we don't see it. And so we simply believe that Spider-Man is a good guy, Batman is a good guy. You don't know whether Santa, before he carries his gift out, he does sacrifice. But I mean, because we know the Egungun, so the Egungun is an enemy, but the other guys are good guys because we don't know, or we were made to believe that They are just, costumes, and Santa is Santa, Jesus Christ, even though there's no Santa in the Bible. It was human invention. I believe an update on Egungun, someone who researched Egungun properly and reinvented Egungun so that I can collect money from the people who don't like Egungun. It's still the same business, same mask, same everything. However, right, let's just follow carefully. So you have picked a superhero whose origin you don't really know. If I begin to ask those who pick Santa now, when was the first time Santa was done? You may not have researched it, right? If I ask you who was the first Spider-Man, you may not have known. If I ask you who is the first Batman, you may not have known. In fact, for those of you that associate Egungun with fetishism and all those things, there may be new Egunguns right now that don't even do all those things anymore. Egungun for money. The guy just wants to pay his children's school fees, and so he's doing Egungun, but we don't want to know that because of what we've known about them. Now, this takes me to the third characters. What do you know about Zeus, Shango, and Amadioha, and where did you get your source from? Follow me, I'm going on a journey carefully. What do you know about Zeus, Shango, and Amadioha, and where did you get your source from? Anybody? I need you to help me. Let's do it together. Right again, maybe Elizabeth wants to go, or someone else. I need us to do this together. We are talking about building family heritage and legacy as Africans. Okay? Stabisi said they are the same. Interesting. Okay? And any other person, what do you know about these three guys? Zeus, by the way, is the god of the Greeks. Shango, of course, the god of fire or thunder. And then Amadioha also, So let me see. They are all gods of thunder. Interesting. Tony Ogunkomi, Shango, god of thunder from Yoruba movies. They are all gods. Okay. Who are gods? I'm sure you are also a god. Okay. But follow carefully. Now, I have seen a lot of things. In fact, the two black gods have been rebranded by the Greeks. Interesting, into Zeus. Metong, your perspective is really, really insightful. Okay, but follow carefully. Now, these guys are gods by the definition of gods, depending on their ancestry and depending on the stories you heard. Up until 5 years ago, I will never touch this Ongo guy with a pole because everything I knew about him sounded like fallacy, didn't make sense. Some guy who has fire in it. Everything we knew about him was that he had fire. He was scary. He was scruffy. He's some demonic guy. But then I studied philosophy and logic. I went to Greece, for thank God Emma is here. We went together. They told us about this Zeus guy. In fact, you can't call him Zeus guy because he's so revered. As a matter of fact, they believe that it was Zeus that inseminated the mother of Alexander the Great, and then for him to give birth to Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great went on to conquer the world based on the story his mother told him, about how she is a son of God. So Zeus is regarded as God in the Greek system. Now, Amadioha, on the other hand, is from the Igbo culture. Amadioha is also the god of thunder and the god of fire, by the Igbo culture. Now, everything we knew before now were the things taught to us. And so, there are families who are of the heritage of the Shango and the Amadioha. By the virtue of Christianity or Islam, they totally discarded and demonized these guys. And I'm not saying they were good guys. Totally demonized them, dissociated from them because I don't want their curses to follow me. And so these guys look like avengers of curses and avengers of failure and avengers of, they just look like bad news. That if you belong to this family, the kind of spirit that will be operating in you are spirits of violence and the rest of them. And so people totally dissociated. People changed their name from Shango Wanwa to Jesu Wanwa, change their name from, Amadio Agbemi or something like that to Jesu Baby. Pardon me, right? I don't speak Igbo. Now, Zeus has endured. Zeus is standing, right? But then let us do a little bit of history understand these guys. And for the purpose of today's class, I'm going to focus on Shango and Zeus. Now, history says that Shango was born. So the fact that he was born means that he's a human being like you and I. Means that, the concept that he's a god, he was deified by human beings. And pardon me, historically, whenever a mortal demonstrates some form of supernatural prowess, what the people of that age used to do is that they deified the person and began to worship. And that is not something that is far-fetched. You and I know men of God in Africa today that are worshipped, that people consider to be God. Don't mention names, but there are names ringing in your mind. That if you are their members, you can't even call him by name. You can't go against him. Their members can kill you, right? What their members are doing literally in human worship is not different from what Shango worshippers used to do to Shango. It's just that this time around is spiced up with Christianity and Islam, right? But that's by the way. This guy was born historically, even though there are different versions of the story, as a result of union between Obatala. Obatala is regarded as the god of creation and wisdom, right? Even though Obatala got drunk when he was supposed to come and create the earth, and then his brother, by the Yoruba mythology, his brother, Oduduwa, now took over the creation of heaven and the earth. That's their own story. And their stories are valid to them. Now, Oya is the goddess of storm, change, and fertility. Now, let us look at the strengths and the weaknesses of this Shango. Now, number one, Shango has 4 predominant strengths and 4 major weaknesses. Number one, strength and power. Shango was known for his incredible physical strength and control over the elements, particularly thunder and lightning. They believed that he had dominion over lightning and thunder, that he was that powerful, and he was some incredibly strong guy. Right. Number 2, justice and fairness. Shango was known for protecting the innocent and punishing evil doers. Number 3, courage and bravery. Shango was fearless, able to confront challenges head on. As a matter of fact, when the Oyo Empire had a warfare, Shango was a one-man riot squad. Nobody needed to follow him. He could go to the war and win it by himself. Number 4, fertility and agriculture ensures the prosperity of crops and community. Let us pause there before we go to his weakness. Let us assume that you don't know anything you know about Shango. Forget your bias and everything you've been told. Someone told you that you had an ancestor who had strength and power, and that is passed from everyone in the family, that you had strength and power, your children have strength and power, and this power and strength is not natural. It's a bit supernatural. It means they have control over thunder and lightning. Number 2, that your heritage or your ancestor is full of justice and fairness, that he will stand for what is right and he will go against what is wrong. As a matter of fact, that he has supernatural power to punish the evil people. So let's assume you just got aware that you have that supernatural power to punish African leaders who are bad, and by just some magic wand, take them out of office or they die tomorrow, right? Let's assume you just got that information. Then let's assume you were told that this your ancestor has courage and bravery, that courage and bravery run in your lineage. And then fertility and agriculture, that you have a heritage that if you ever go into agriculture, right, that your entire family will prosper, prosperity of crops, that it's natural with your heritage. Once you plant it, boom, massive harvest, and that you have the power of fertility, that there will be no barren person in your heritage. Let us assume that is where we stopped. That is the story you were told. That is what you've come to believe. How many of you will gladly pass this story to your children? I want to see I and nay on the chat box. How many of you will own this story? It resonates with you. You will publish it. You will speak about it. You will stand by it, and you will stand for it. Can I see? Or maybe you want to talk. Go ahead. We're going somewhere, okay? Ola said hi. Hey, hi. Okay, let me see more people, right? Okay, hi, hi, hi. I'm seeing quite a number of people say hi. Right. Why? Because all you were told about this story was the story of his greatness, the story of his prowess. Nobody talked about his weakness. However, let us go to his weakness. Okay, Elizabeth said nay, and that's okay. I will say I with this guy, right? Because this is what I heard, this is what I know. It's very inspiring. I want strength and power. I want to have power over lightning. I want justice and fairness. I want courage and bravery. I want fertility and agriculture. I want to prosper. Basically, I will say hi. Right. Now, let us go to his weaknesses. History says that one, he was temperamental, quick temper, and impulsiveness, which can lead to destructive outbursts. Of course, many of us knew that about him. Two, vengeful, ruthless punishment of those who disobey and disrespect him. Number three, pride and arrogance. He can disregard counsel and overlook potential danger because he underestimates the enemy. And number five, or number four, womanizing. He loves women. This guy, he loves knacking. And so, multiple wives and conquest, which can lead to conflict and distraction. Now, let me announce to you that the descendants of this guy, they actually have the tendency of his strength, and they also have the tendency of his weaknesses. Now, we call that generational pattern, or what Christians call generational curses. Generational curses may not necessarily be curses. They are just patterns that has traveled from one generation to the other. In fact, in psychology, we say generational trauma, because trauma can pass from one generation to the other. Follow me. Now, interesting thing is what has been marketed and sold over the years is the weaknesses of this guy, and so his descendants have not appropriated his strength, and all they have taken is his weaknesses. And so people have moved on to talk about, oh, this guy is angry. Movies have been shared about his anger. Movies have been shared about his womanizing. Movies have been shared about his vengefulness, pride, and arrogance. But nothing has been said about his strength, as it were, other than the fact that he's a strong guy. Now, that is Shango. Now, let us flip a bit to how the Greeks handled Zeus. So this is Zeus. Okay, before we go to Zeus, what do the descendants of this hero believe about him in this age and time? Right? They've defined him by his weaknesses and discarded his strength. Yet the same people in school, they study. If you go through university, you must study Zeus. You must study philosophy and logic. In fact, it's a compulsory general studies, right? And so people love his legend, Zeus. They talk about him, but nobody talk about this guy. But follow where I'm going. So let's look at Zeus and examine Zeus. Okay, thank you very much. This person said, our panegyrics tells a story we need to know. We're not just paying attention to it. Thank you very much, Divinely Favored. Now, let us look at Zeus. I'll go through Zeus's strengths, and I'll go through his weaknesses, and I'll ask you a question. Right. How many of you, in fact, let me ask a question. How many of you have ever heard of the weakness of Zeus in any movie, in any story, in any rendition, since you have heard the word Zeus? Anybody? You have heard about his weakness, you have studied his weaknesses, or you have seen a book, or so, in fact, you have thought about him as a human being or as a mortal. Now, let us look at his strength. The strength of Zeus are power and authority. Zeus is the supreme ruler of the sky and the gods, wielding immense power and control. Zeus had wisdom and justice, is often depicted as a wise and just ruler, dispensing justice and maintaining order among the gods and mortals. 3, protection and defense. Zeus is a fierce protector of his domain, defending the gods and mortals against threats and evil forces. Number 4, leadership and strategy. He's a skilled leader and strategist, often guiding the gods to victory in battles and conflicts. Now, look at his weaknesses. Infidelity and womanizing, that's number 1. Zeus is notorious for his numerous affairs and conquests, often resulting in conflicts and drama. Pride and arrogance. His immense power and authority can lead to pride and arrogance, causing him to disregard the counsel of others. His overconfidence makes him overlook potential danger. Temperamental. Zeus is known for his quick temper and impulsiveness, which can lead to destructive outbursts and conflict. Vengeful is feared for his ruthless punishment of those who disobey and disrespect him. Now, who wants to who wants to tell me what you observe between Shango and Zeus? Anybody? Let me even start from there.
They
What
have
your
the
observation?
same.
They are the same.
They are the same, isn't it? The same, but in different cultures. Now, however, you have never had the weakness of Zeus because of the way Zeus was packaged, the way he was promoted, right? So everybody in Greek, in fact, when they talk about Zeus, you will see the Greek citizens, they are crying, they are shaking. They say, wow, our God, you know, they still believe he's the creator of heaven and earth. They believe he has children and blah, 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 blah. Now, nobody talks about this. In fact, you dare not, I can't go to Greece and say that Zeus has weaknesses. That would be like blasphemy. If I said it in the era of the Greek Empire, it was punishable by death. Nobody saw his weaknesses. The same way, there are leaders we worship today in Africa who has massive weaknesses, terribly flawed. In fact, when their errors or their lies make it to social media, their defenders defend them. Say, touch not my anointed. Don't say that about the anointed of the Lord. They are mortals. Exactly what was done for Zeus, what wasn't done for Shango. I am going somewhere. So if you see the Greek Empire went on to dominate the world, as a matter of fact, let me shock you. Every knowledge we have today has a Greek Empire influence. Everything we do, be it mathematics, be it democracy. Democracy actually came from the Greek Empire. In fact, church, ecclesia, was not innovated by Jesus. Ecclesia was first innovated by the Greek Empire. So there is a massive influence of Zeus and the Greek Empire on everything you do today, including the clothes you wear, whether you admit it or you don't admit it. Now, but it's about how they have packaged the God that they call Zeus to be and how they completely ignored his weakness. It's called selective bias, and we all have it. The people you love, you are not likely going to see their weaknesses. In fact, you can exaggerate their strength. I mean, you have heard the stories of Apostle Babalola, so many versions of the story, you know, of how he prayed and the wall cracked, of, you know, how he prayed and fire came down. You know, you've heard those stories. You were not there. But people have the tendency to exaggerate the story of someone they love who has exhibited certain superpower. The only problem is, as the Western influx began to come to Africa, one of the strategies, if I want to overpower a people, the first thing I'm going to do from a strategic point of view is to make them begin to doubt their identity and their history. Once you doubt that, esteem problem comes in. Once esteem problem comes in, the next thing that happens is they become jealous and suspicious of themselves, and they begin to implode from within because they cannot unite. And so I'm going to stand as the referee that I'm mediating, but I'm going to take a lot of advantage of them. That is how predators operate. That's how psychopaths operate. And that is how Africa was colonized. Now, follow me carefully. So look at this interesting fact. Zeus in Greece, Indra in India, Lilgong in China, Regine in Japan is literally Shango in Nigeria. Same behavior of all of them, and I've studied all of them. Same manifestation, same strength, same weaknesses. It then looks like, I don't know who owns Shango. Shango is called Shango in Africa. You know, it's interesting that people say we don't like Shango in Africa. They go to Greece and they pay to study Zeus. But they don't know that they're still studying Shango. They go to India and they pay to study Indra. They go to his shrine, right? And they pay to see Indra. They are still paying to Shango. They go to China and they study Lil Gong. They are still studying Shango. They go to Japan and they show them the aesthetics of Regine, right? Unknown to them, they are still paying to the same Shango, right? The difference is in packaging and narrative management. While Zeus gave us Alexander the Great, Shango has been restricted to palm oil and libation, right? So even his worshippers have not done justice to him. The way they make him look, they just put some place down, they put palm from there, and they will pour libation, and they pour oil. But you see, Shango's counterpart in Greece gave the world Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great conquered the world, gave the world mathematics. Pythagoras gave the world many, many innovations from the Greek Empire. Greek Empire had influence on Roman Empire. Roman Empire had influence on the British system. The British system colonized Nigeria and the rest of the world. So till today, we still have the influence of the British. And so you will then look at it, and I'm not talking about Shango really. Shango is not my subject. I'm talking about what could have happened in your own heritage that you have not studied. The powers that existed in the Shango heritage were powers of, the guy has some supernatural forces, like some of us do. The guy has bravery, some of us are timid. The only reason some of you have not become the savior in your sector is timidity. You are afraid. Yet Shango has that in abundance, right? Some of us, right, you don't like injustice. And Shango doesn't like injustice. He wants justice and he would stand. But we can't stand, you know why? We are powerless and we are timid. And so even though we say, oh, we have power, I've got the powers like Ndaboski, I want to release my power, you know, even though that's what we say, deep down we know we don't have power. You know, I was talking to a military guy who in the US here, and he was saying to me, he said, Praise, you know, when you guys say you have power, you have power. He said, we laugh in the military base. He said, because we have enough sophistication. If we want to kill all of you, we just need to throw something in there and you are all level. And this, your power is not going to work, right? And I looked at the guy, I wanted to slap him in my mind. Of course, I couldn't say that out to say, how dare you say we don't have power? But I went back thinking about what he said, and it's true. With all the powers I have, if somebody throws a bomb into my house, I am gone. I am gone. I will meet God in heaven, right? And so we need to begin to ask, what exactly is this power? And what exactly are we missing out as a people? Because every time you still feel incomplete, every time you feel esteem, every time you sense jealousy, every time you think something is not adding up for you, it's a direct feedback to something that is missing in your identity. An identity is a combination of your history and your heritage or values that has been passed down. No wonder Fela Drotoye said, it is not what you don't have that limits you. It is what you have, but you don't know how to use. So even though Shango worshippers they could have created a Greek empire. Maybe they call it Shango Empire or Yoruba Empire. They could have colonized the rest of the world, raise a guy who understands the values, like the Greek put the story. Zeus impregnated the mother of Alexander the Great. And then she gave birth to Alexander the Great, and he was told he's the son of Zeus. On that revelation, he conquered the entire world. Maybe if his own story was well packaged, his children will not be reduced to oil, looking for oil. Oil is not even expensive, palm oil, to be pouring on his shrine or something like that. Maybe they could have innovated electricity. Maybe they could have seen themselves as superior human race because it's about your story and it's about the stories you are telling yourself. So who are your African heroes? I talk to African teenagers in the diaspora here, and they are defining Africa by the misbehavior of Paul Biya, President Paul Biya in Cameroon, who is going for election again, and by the time he's done, he will be 100 years old. He became president in 1982 or 1980. I was barely 4 years old when he became president. He's still the president of Cameroon. Cameroon has not developed. Or the misbehavior of President Buhari, who starts on the throne in Nigeria, wasted 8 years of our life. That is the people they are defining Africa by. But nobody talks about the Africa of King Eware, you know, the man who opened up Benin Kingdom and built the greatest mosque the world has ever seen. That's in the Guinness Book of Records. It's about narrative management and storytelling. Are you aware, until recently, All we knew about Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was the first woman who drove a car. They had to downplay a story because he did not. Nigeria was a patriarchal, especially the Yorubas, were a patriarchal society. It must not be hard in history that a woman, mere woman, like they call it, sacked a king. It didn't go look right to history of the men. So they had to look for something, and that is the way strategists think. We would downplay your greatness and still give you what looks like greatness that people will be clapping for, but it doesn't make any sense. Nobody talked about how nationalistic she was. Nobody talked about how she was one of the top leaders in Nigeria. That this woman actually deserves to be on our stamp, deserves to be on our money, but her entire existence was reduced to the fact that she was Fela's mother, right? And then that she was the first woman who drove a car, right? Maybe if the women in Nigeria knew a story that she sacked a king, maybe they would have been empowered earlier enough to sack governors who were not performing. But nobody told us that story until recently when the story came out. I was shocked that his family members did not even talk about it as well, right? Do we talk about Mansa Musa, the richest man in history? And that is documented, right? The emperor of Mali, right? So who are your African heroes? Are we defining ourselves by the misbehavior of a few or by the greatness of the people who have gone before us that we have not even studied? When your history is lost, you will define your entire existence by the misbehavior of your recent leadership as against the greatness of your true heroes. I would submit to you today as I wrap up that maybe the authentic story of your lineage or your heritage is lost. You know, I was having a conversation with a couple. I'm taking them through premarital counseling yesterday. And the lady said to me that I am partly from Benin and I'm partly from Ileoluji. Instinctively, I just went online to ask AI if there was a link between Ileoluji and Benin, and voila, it came up to say that Ileoluji people actually originated from Benin Kingdom. That was shocking to her. And she said, Praise, I'm going to go and do more research. There was another person who, had attended some of the classes and actually believed she was Igbo, and she's still Igbo. She spoke Igbo. Her generation was Igbo. But she went to do a genealogical, study and found out that our ancestry is actually from Benin Kingdom, right? They migrated to Anambra State or something like that, right? That if you don't go back to history and know your history, there may be some greatness that God has placed in your lineage that is lost. It's a treasure waiting for someone to stand up and take responsibilities and hunt it and bring it back to life, right? And so we need to understand that when our history is lost, and that is what has happened. Nigeria does not have history in secondary schools. We have no history in primary school. And so very soon, our history will be defined by senators, by dancing governors, by funny people, right? Africa at large is in pain simply because history has either been lost or polluted. And so I am going to ask you a question that I've always asked. Every class I've asked this question, less than 1% knew the answer. Who was the fourth man in your fourth generation? And what inspiring stories have you buried simply because someone focused on the misdeeds of your history as against the strength of that history? So if I ask all of you on this call today, and those of you who are going to be listening, do you know the name of your great-great-great-grandfather? The man in the fourth generation, do you know his name? And what was spectacular about him, right? What was spectacular about him? I want you to answer the question. Do you know your great-great-great-grandfather, fourth generation? Do you know his name to start with? And do you know the greatest thing he achieved? Anybody, right? Put it on the chat box. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Gold does not know. Okay, Lena does not know, right? I have no idea. Florence has no idea. But you know that those people existed. Okay, Jide said we're royalty. Those people existed. So does it mean that their existence was in vain? They did Okay, God's will, he was a money lender. No wonder you've been carrying calculator up and down. Now I understand. God's will carries calculator. Okay, we don't know our abandoned for exploit. Some of us don't know. And so, if you don't know, does that mean they didn't exist? Because you know Alexander the Great, you know Jesus, you know Abraham, you know, if the people of Abraham and David did not document their own ancestral story, will you have a Bible to read? So what is missing? It's not impossible that some of you were from a royal lineage. And because you didn't know, it's lost in history, you know what is happening? You are not aware you are a royalty. Your children are not aware they are royalty, so they are now paupers, looking for identity, right? Being slapped right and center, falling in love with peasants, funny people that in history they will never fall in love with, falling in love with wife beaters, wife molesters, you know, husband snatchers, falling in love with small people because their identity is lost. If you understand the story of kingdoms, you would realize that when it comes to marriage, a royalty does not marry just anybody because they know that they are royalty except by choice. Now, a lost history. So let's assume all of us here, maybe our forefathers were cocoa farmers, merchants. It's already saying to us that we have a superpower of industry. But guess what? You are looking for the next job. They are teaching you to write a good CV. And they are coaching you. This is how you write your CV. Oh, wow. You need to write your CV like this. This is how you present for interview. You know why? Historically, you are not even allowed, permitted to go and look for interview. Wealth is handed over to you from generation. But someone dropped the ball in your lineage, and the person that dropped the ball has affected the reality of everyone else. But someone has got to pick up the ball and say, no, this is not who we are. There is so much more in us. We are royalties. We are supposed to be the one creating the businesses. See, it's about consciousness. Be it unto you according to your belief. It is what you believe that becomes your reality. And that is why you see some people, it feels as if they have superiority complex because they don't understand what you're talking about. If you say people are hungry, Prince Charles does not understand it when he was a child, right? Because he was a royalty. Every need was paid for. Everything was supplied to him. And so we need to understand that there could be something that is lost. It doesn't mean there is no evil, no fetishism. There was evil. Jesus' lineage, there was a prostitute there. He didn't hide it, right? But even that prostitute in his lineage, the prostitute had a good. The good was that she kept the spice. That's preservation. That is a savior DNA. And so when Jesus became the savior of the world, it was because, so you can see everyone is his lineage, they all have a savior tendency. So it's a savior lineage, as it were. King David, he rescued, saved Israel from Goliath. That's a savior in there, right? Solomon, that's a savior in there. You go on and on, Judah, that's a savior in there. Go through their entire history, you will see the tendency and the superpower of saviors running through. Abraham's father actually left Paul to go to Canaan and settle somewhere, I can't remember the place, settled in the place, and then died in there. The next time Abraham was going to move and God told him to get out, he was still going to Canaan. So there's always a territorial conquest, nation building tendency in Abraham's lineage, right? And so you need to check. Some of you are industrialists, you have lost it. Some of you are activists, you have lost it. Some of you are from a priestful lineage. So your great-great-grandfather was an Oshun priest, or your great-great-great-great-grandfather was an Ifa priest. That's a priesthood. You can redefine it in whatever way you want to do in this age and time. So before the wealth of Saudi Arabia, there was Mansa Musa. But Africans don't talk about that. Before Dubai became the ninth wonder of the world, there was a Benin kingdom by Oba Iwari and the rest of them, right? We have always had it, but that history is lost. The question today is, what superpower is hidden in your history that has been buried? It's a question you need to answer. Maybe you just need, for what it's worth, go and find out the history. We're not saying everything about our history is perfect, because many things we call evil in their age was acceptable. Was it okay for Israel to go and kill Amalekites and kill children and women? That's genocide in our today's world. But that was acceptable then. But you read it in the Bible and you're happy about it. Say, yes, they killed the enemies of God. But there were children there, there were women there, right? Does your human soul feel the pain of the people that were killed, maybe unjustly? But it was acceptable then, because then it was a jungle, survival of the fittest. But that's no longer acceptable in our modern age and time. And so why are you not cutting slack for your parents, and what they did that was no longer acceptable in our age and time? And so we need to begin to think and begin to check, because what we have been reduced to right now as a struggling people, look at Nigeria. We are now a people queuing for fuel. I see it and it breaks my heart that we have the largest chain refinery in the world, and yet we still don't have fuel. It's 1,000 naira, right? So 10 liters is 10,000, 100 liters is 100,000, right? And so you begin to ask yourself, what has happened to us? So look at Benin Kingdom. There was a time Benin people became known as traffickers, prostitutes. They're always going to Italy. But these same people, they were the people who created the bronze works. One was sold for, one of those bronze works that was stolen was sold for 4.7 million US dollars in 2017. Imagine if it was sold directly by Benin people themselves, 4.7 million US dollars. Do you know what it would do to Benin City, Benin, Edo State economy? They made a moat, the largest wall ever created, ever built. If they were to build this wall in modern time, they would need to spend 80 billion to 160 billion US dollars. Benin City, one of the most beautiful and well-organized cities in the world of that time, that when the whites and the Portuguese came, they said the technology they used in there was ahead of its time. Benin art and ivory carving, each is sold for 10,000 to 1 million US dollars, depending on the value. Benin art advanced trade and diplomacy. Do the descendants of Benin Kingdom know this? Because if they don't know this, you know what they will begin to do? The boys will look at the girls and they will be talking about nothing. And they wake up in the morning, and what will be trending on the social media is knacking or olosho. That's what will be trending, because they have lost a sense of their identity. They don't even know. I think the Bible talks about it, that they know not, they do not understand. The foundation of the world is shaky. I have said you are gods, but you are going to die like ordinary men because you don't know who you are. So in order for you to build your heritage, you need to begin to ask, what tendency exists in your ancestry that you may have lost? If you check the Benin Empire, visionary runs in the DNA of anybody from that lineage. Leadership naturally runs in their lineage. Wisdom runs in their lineage. Organization runs in their lineage. Innovation runs in their lineage. Community runs in their lineage. Wisdom and royalty runs in their lineage. But then the people who have this flowing inside of them that they could have activated are now reduced to child trafficking, are now reduced to begging for fuel, running around begging on social media, simply because history and heritage is lost. There is nothing that is wrong about your history, that what is right about your history can balance out. Everybody has got the good, the bad, and the ugly in their history. You are not the only one. So don't run away from it. And so, right narrative and owning your history, therefore, is the fourth pathway to building a family legacy. Right narrative and owning your history is the first pathway to building a family legacy. So they took us to Bramble Castle in Scotland. Someone took me there. 14, 17 pounds was what we paid. They took us through the history. It's been standing for 1,400 years. They didn't even hide anything. They took us to the dungeons where they used to torture the slaves way back. And yes, people will go there and you laugh at it, but they have scripted the story, narrative. British have scripted narrative. In Germany does not talk about how they try to exterminate God's people. They built a narrative. If you check the Egyptian history, you will not see the parting of the Red Sea there. You will not see how their people died in the Red Sea. It's been curated to suit their own purpose. Israel said they went to Egypt. Egypt said Israel did not come to us. Everybody has their narrative. What is your narrative? So here are 5 things you need to do. 1, I want you to look back and embrace history. Jesus did not shy away from his history. So go back to your history, and for what is what? Know it. You will appreciate the struggle some of your ancestors went through. Number 2, find your superpower based on what is consistent. There is something consistent through your history that resonates. Focus on the positives, right? The Zeus, they focus on the positive. Shango people, they focus on its negative. You focus on the positive. Maybe they were teachers. Your forefather was the first teacher in your village. That's a pioneering spirit. So maybe you have a pioneering superpower that you can pass to your children. You need to rebuild the story. Number 2, appropriate the strength and project it consistently. I am from a heritage of leadership, so I lead everywhere I go. I am from a heritage of innovation, so I innovate. I have that awareness. Press forward. I have that awareness. That is why every time I'm doing a presentation, my presentations are always unique. I don't want to sound like anybody. I don't want to copy anybody. I want to go on my journey because I'm from a heritage of innovation. I knew that from my family history, right? And so what is your own? Find your strength. It doesn't mean they don't have weaknesses, but I have focused on the strength. Number 4, create an empowering narrative around your story. Jacob was a guy who married 2 sisters. That would not be acceptable in today's world. He also impregnated their house help. That would be called a philanderer. But the story was carefully managed, and God changed his name from 419 to Israel. Beautiful story. You read it, it inspires you. It means you can repackage your history and make it relatable and inspiring for generations unborn. And number 5, own your identity and live it out every day. Acts 10:34-35. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth, I perceive God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation, including your heritage, your lineage, your family, including Nigeria, Zambia, Botswana, Kenya, he that honors him and is in right alignment is accepted with him. Guys, I believe you are the generation that is now rightly aligned to rebuild the greatness of Africa. You are a savior, and only your strength must define you and your ancestry henceforth. I hope with these few points of mine, have been able to convince you. But let me just announce that everyone, part of the events we plan is the Taste of Africa, first weekend in October. So plan for it. First Saturday or Sunday, wherever you are, you're going to cook your local delicacy and maybe invite people to come and taste it. And you're going to tell them about your story, about your history, maybe your ancestry, the greatness about your ancestry, whatever country you are, you got to do that. In fact, if you can invite foreigners to come and be a part of it, that would be fantastic. And make sure you take pictures and make sure you shoot videos. But I hope this has been helpful. We'll continue a little bit, but please listen to this over and over and over again. They said to me that Bishop Oyedepo said, only a fool markets his weaknesses. I think we've marketed our weaknesses enough about how be demonic. There is no culture on this planet that was not demonic, not one. And what we call demonism is even relative. Anyways, now that you know better, you need to go back and repackage the story and make it inspiring so that your children can own it. They will never become Americans. They will never become Jews, but they will become the best version of themselves. There was greatness in Africa, and there's greatness in you. Remember, you are a savior. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic, fantastic week. Over to you, Ayo Lawrence.
Thank you so much, PF, for this insight.